It's a good bounce back win for us today. I thought we started the game with the right tone on the defensive end, and so that was that was by design.
The fracture was not an accident. It was a meticulously planned demolition, conducted with the cold precision of a controlled burn. For months, the world watched, hoping the smoldering tension between the most electrifying force in modern basketball and the monolithic institution built to represent it would resolve into something resembling a truce. Instead, the silence from both camps was a vacuum, pulling in speculation, anxiety, and a desperate, fraying hope. Then came the spark, the oxygen, and finally, the inferno. The bridge between Caitlyn Clark and Team USA isn't simply charred timber and snapped cables. It has been reduced to fine, irretrievable ash, scattered by a wind of mutual, intractable defiance. The point of no return was not a press conference or a public statement, but a series of moments in a muted, high-stakes gym, where the unspoken became policy, and policy became a death knell. This is the story of that incineration. It is a tale that stretches far beyond the painted lines of a court, into the volatile realms of generational change, institutional ego, the brutal economics of modern sports, and the raw, unforgiving calculus of power. It is about what happens when the future arrives, suitcase in hand, at the doorstep of the past, and is told, in no uncertain terms, that there is no room at the inn. The 2024 Olympic snub was a tremor. What happened behind the soundproof doors of that training camp was the catastrophic earthquake that forever altered the landscape. We are now witnesses to the total collapse of the relationship between the face of a soaring sport and the very body entrusted with its stewardship. The ramifications will be measured in lost legacies, alienated fans, and a fundamental question: can a system survive when it willingly excises its own heart? To understand the detonation, one must first map the fault lines. The snub for the Paris 2024 Olympic roster was not an isolated misjudgment. It was a symptom of a deep philosophical schism. On one side stood Cheryl Reeve, a Hall of Fame coach whose legacy is built on a bedrock of system, structure, and an unyielding hierarchy. Her success in the WNBA with the Minnesota Lynx is legendary, a dynasty forged through defensive discipline, meticulous execution, and the subsumption of individual brilliance into collective purpose. Reeve's basketball is a symphony where every note is scripted, every movement purposeful. Stardom is earned through years of dues paying, through accepting a role within a rigid framework. On the other side was Caitlyn Clark, a phenomenon who did not so much arrive as erupt onto the scene. Her game was not a symphony but a wildfire, unpredictable, exhilarating, and devastatingly effective. She represented the new age of basketball, positionless, fueled by audacious range, transcendent passing vision, and a pace that turned games into track meets. Her stardom was not granted by an institution. It was democratically conferred by millions of fans who saw in her not just skill, but a revolution. She played with a joyous, visible urgency that seemed to reject the very notion of paying dues. Her dues were paid in sold-out arenas, shattered viewership records, and a cultural footprint that expanded the game's boundaries. The Olympic Selection Committee, heavily influenced by Reeve's philosophy, looked at Clark and saw a defensive liability, a turnover risk in a tight, physical international game. They saw a rookie who hadn't navigated the professional grind. The world looked at Clark and saw the single most potent offensive weapon on the planet, a gravitational force who would warp defenses and create opportunities for everyone around her. The snub was, in essence, a value judgment. The system's known quantities were deemed safer than the superstar's transcendent, if unorthodox, potential. The public outcry was immediate and volcanic. It was framed not as a mere roster controversy, but as an existential betrayal. For a newer, younger generation of fans, the very audience the sport desperately needed to secure it was proof that the old guard was out of touch, more invested in preserving its own insular culture than in winning with the best possible tools. The message was received. Your new rules, your new star, your new audience are not welcome here on our terms. Yet, hope, that stubborn tenant, refused to be evicted. The Paris Olympics would come and go. Surely, the logic went, cooler heads would prevail for the next cycle. The 2028 Los Angeles Games on home soil would be the perfect stage for reconciliation. Clark would mature in the WNBA, Reeve would see her value integrated into a professional system, and the narrative would course-correct toward destiny. This hope was the kindling. The training camp in the late spring of 2025 was billed internally as a fresh start, a new chapter. For the Federation's PR team, it was a necessary fiction. For Clark and her representatives, it was a cautious, probationary opportunity. She arrived not with the swagger of a crownless queen, but with the focused determination of a trialist. She was there to prove, once and for all, that she could fit, that she could be a soldier in Reeve's army. What transpired was not an evaluation, it was an exorcism. The leaked reports from inside that gym paint a picture of psychological and tactical warfare so blatant it borders on farce. Witnesses, strength coaches, low-level staffers, individuals whose loyalty was to the sport itself rather than any one faction described a scene of surreal alienation. Scrimmages were not competitive exercises. They were staged demonstrations of exclusion. Clark, the player who commands defensive attention from half-court, was systematically installed as a stationary fixture in the weak side corner. Play after play was called for veterans, some of whom were visibly past their athletic primes. Complex sets involving multiple screens and handoffs would unfold on the opposite side of the floor, while Clark stood, a spectator in uniform, her defender sagging into the paint, ignoring her completely. The offense operated as a 4-on-4 game, with the most dangerous scorer on the planet reduced to a decoy. When she attempted to inject herself into the flow calling for a ball screen, making a hard backdoor cut, she was met with averted eyes from teammates and sharp, audible whistles from the sidelines to reset the play. The message from the coaching staff was not subtle. Stay there, do not move. You are not part of this. It was a calculated attempt to strip her of rhythm, agency, and confidence. In basketball, rhythm is everything. It is the breath of the scorer, the heartbeat of the playmaker. To deny it is a form of suffocation. The climax came during a late-game simulation. The scenario demanded a three-pointer to win. The entire gym, every player, every staff member knew who should take that shot. The play was drawn up for a fading jumper from a veteran wing. Clark, according to sources, approached an assistant coach during the timeout. Her question was simple, professional. What's my role here? Where do you want me on this? The response was not tactical guidance. It was a blank stare, a shrug, and a turned back. The ultimate cold shoulder. In that moment, the basketball pretense evaporated. This wasn't about fit or defensive schemes. It was a raw assertion of power. Her role was to be invisible. For Clark, a player whose entire career has been built on supreme confidence and an unshakable belief in her own abilities, this was a unique form of humiliation. It wasn't a coach yelling at her for a mistake. It was the system telling her she was not just a mistake, but an irrelevance. The psychological warfare, as one insider noted, wasn't designed to make her better. It was designed to make her quit. Clark's response was the true shockwave, the event that revealed how profoundly the balance of power had shifted. There was no tantrum, no leaked diatribe to a friendly reporter, no cryptic, emotional social media post. Her reaction was a void, a quiet, absolute negation. According to sources close to her camp, she packed her gear, completed the day's obligations with a steely, professional demeanor, and left. Within days, formal invitations to upcoming mini-camps and preliminary exhibition tours were declined, not with drama, but with terse, business-like efficiency. The message was clear: she was done. She had quit without uttering a single public word. This was not the act of a petulant rookie. It was the strategic move of a fully realized global entity. Clark had conducted a brutal cost-benefit analysis. On one side, the honor of representing her country, the chance at Olympic gold, the historic prestige. On the other, a toxic environment that diminished her talents, a coaching staff actively hostile to her presence, and the mental and physical toll of fighting a war on two fronts. She realized the calculus had changed. The Olympic rings, once the ultimate prize, were no longer the sun around which a female athlete's career orbited. They were now just one planet in a much larger solar system. Clark's power derives from a new paradigm. She is the engine of the WNBA's unprecedented financial and cultural surge. Jersey sales, television ratings, road game attendance all trace their spikes to her presence. She has signature shoe deals, national advertising campaigns, and a social media footprint that dwarfs the entire Team USA roster combined. Her brand, as cold as that term may sound, is robust and self-sustaining. The Federation needed her to legitimize their product to a new generation. She did not need them to validate her stardom. By walking away, she issued a devastating statement: "I don't need you, you need me, and until you acknowledge that, we have nothing to discuss." It was a power move of breathtaking clarity, one that previous generations of athletes, reliant on the Federation for exposure and endorsement opportunities, could never have dared to make. The silent resignation triggered immediate and severe institutional vertigo. Within the polished halls of USA Basketball and the connected boardrooms of their broadcast partners, NBC, ESPN, a cold panic set in. Spreadsheets don't lie. Internal projections for the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics, from ticket sales to domestic TV ratings to international licensing, were all built on a foundational assumption: Caitlyn Clark would be the centerpiece. Her face was to be on the billboards, in the promos, on the podium. Without her, those financial models crumbled. Sponsors, particularly Nike, which has invested a generational sum in Clark as their flagship athlete, began making inquiries. These are not polite conversations. They are calibrated expressions of corporate terror. When a company pays hundreds of millions for an athlete, they expect that athlete to be showcased on the biggest stages, not benched by bureaucratic intransigence. The pressure began to flow downhill from corporate suites to Federation executives. Fix this. The toxicity seeped into the locker room, fracturing the squad along generational lines. A faction of veterans, those who had ascended under Reeve's hierarchy and believed deeply in its wait-your-turn ethos, reportedly supported the coach. To them, Clark's immediate stardom and the fan demand to accommodate it felt like a bypassing of the natural order, a threat to the culture of sacrifice they had built. But a younger cohort of stars, those who entered the league in Clark's wake or who play a similarly modern, kinetic style, watched the treatment of Clark with a sense of dread. If she could be iced out, what chance did they have? The sisterhood of the WNBA, so potent a narrative during the regular season, evaporated in this pressure cooker. Teammates walked on eggshells. Private group chats buzzed with anxiety. The chemistry Reeve claimed to be protecting by enforcing her hierarchy was, in reality, rotting from the inside out. The team was now two factions, sharing a jersey, united only by a growing sense of mutual distrust. The reputation of USA Basketball itself, long a bastion of invincible excellence, began to tarnish. The program's stated mission is to field the best team possible. By alienating the best offensive player, they stood in direct contradiction to their own core principle. Fans and analysts began to label it a country club, a closed network where legacy and relationships trumped merit and talent. The integrity of the selection process was shattered. It was no longer about choosing the best 12 players, but about choosing the 12 that best fit one person's rigid philosophy. This perception struck at the very heart of the program's credibility. At its core, this conflict is a holy war over the soul of the game. Cheryl Reeve's coaching ideology is a product of a specific, successful era. It values control, low turnovers, high percentage shots, often through post-play, and switching, communicative defense. In this world, Clark's high-risk, high-reward passes and her volume three-point shooting are viewed as destabilizing liabilities. Reeve sees the turnovers. She is blind to the dozen potential assists created by the same visionary passing that leads to 2 or 3 errant ones. She sees a defensive mismatch. She discounts the offensive havoc. Clark reeks that offsets any points she might give up. Clark represents the evolution that has already consumed the men's game. Positionless basketball, pace and space, the primacy of the three-point shot, and the playmaker who can launch from the logo. To force her into a rigid, post-centric system is like forcing a Formula One car to drive on a tractor trail. It negates its greatest strengths. Great coaches at the national team level have always been adapters, not dictators. Consider Coach K with the 2008 to 2016 USA men's teams. He did not force LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, and Kevin Durant to run a set Princeton offense. He created a framework that unleashed their unique overlapping talents. He adapted his system to the players. Reeve appears to be demanding the opposite, that the player contort herself beyond recognition to fit an immutable system. In an era defined by superstar empowerment, this rigidity is not seen as principled, but as tragically obsolete. It is a refusal to evolve, rooted in the fear that if Clark succeeds on her terms, it proves the coach's way is no longer the only way. The information war that followed is a testament to the new media landscape. In a previous era, USA Basketball could have relied on a cohort of sympathetic journalists to control the narrative, to spin Clark's departure as a lack of commitment or an inability to adapt. That machinery is broken. The leaks from the camp did not come from a major network. They emerged from digital journalists, podcasters, and independent content creators with deep sources and no obligation to the Federation. The story was dissected in real time across social media, with fans and analysts using video clips, advanced stats, and body language analysis to debunk the official basketball reasons line. The gaslighting failed spectacularly. The public, armed with evidence and a visceral sense of injustice, acted as a collective jury, and their verdict was overwhelmingly pro-Clark. The Federation's subsequent attempts at damage control anonymous quotes to legacy media about Clark's practice habits or defensive focus rang hollow. They were met with instant counter-narratives, testimonials from Indiana Fever teammates about her work ethic, video montages of her improved defense, and a simple, damning question. If she's so bad, why does every metric show her team is catastrophically worse when she's off the floor? Clark herself, by maintaining a regal silence, ascended above the fray. She focused on her WNBA season, posting highlights of her playmaking and workouts, presenting an image of someone unburdened and thriving. The contrast was stark. The institution mired in leaks and blame, the athlete soaring free. In the court of public opinion, she was not on trial. USA Basketball was. The Federation now faces an existential decision, with no palatable outcome. The ball is trapped in their court, a live grenade with the pin pulled. Option A, back the coach. They affirm Cheryl Reeve's authority, supporting her philosophy and effectively exiling Caitlyn Clark from the 2028 Olympics and beyond. This would be a declaration of war against the sport's growing fan base. The immediate consequences would be financial and cultural, plummeting ratings, sponsor defections, a boycott of merchandise, and an Olympic homecoming in Los Angeles that lacks its central star, transforming a celebration into a controversy. It would cement the narrative that USA Basketball is an antiquated institution, hostile to progress. It might win a gold medal through sheer veteran talent, but it would be a Pyrrhic victory, achieved in arenas half full of apathy. Option B, force a change. They orchestrate a mutual parting of ways with Reeve, ushering in a new coach, someone like Becky Hammon, or a respected college coach who has publicly embraced Clark's game and understands modern player management. This would be a massive, humiliating concession, an admission that the Federation's judgment was catastrophically wrong. It would trigger fierce backlash from the old guard and potentially alienate some veterans, but it would instantly reunite the fan base, restore the program's credibility, and open a path to the dynasty everyone imagined. Clark, Aja Wilson, Breanna Stewart, and a new generation playing a brand of basketball that captivates the world. There is a third, shadow option, back-channel negotiations to broker a truce, but the depth of the personal and philosophical animosity makes this seem like a fantasy. Reeve has staked her legacy on not bending. Clark has tasted the freedom of walking away. Trust is incinerated. This saga is, ultimately, a profound tragedy for the sport of basketball. The world should be anticipating the assembly of a super team for the ages, a blend of established dominance and revolutionary talent that could dominate the global stage for a decade. We should be dreaming of the highlight reels. Clark throwing 40-foot bounce passes to Stewart in transition, Wilson benefiting from the double teams Clark attracts, a beautiful synthesis of old and new. Instead, we are mired in a dispiriting saga of ego, exclusion, and wasted potential. We are being robbed of history. Clark's quit is not a sign of weakness, but a stunning declaration of independence. It marks the moment when the economic and cultural power in women's sports irrevocably shifted from the institution to the individual superstar. She has called the federation's bluff and revealed they hold the weaker hand. The clock is ticking toward Los Angeles 2028. The question now is not whether Caitlyn Clark will wear the red, white, and blue. That ship may have sailed. The real question is whether Team USA, as currently constructed, can survive the consequences of her absence. They are facing an opponent more formidable than any international rival: irrelevance. In their desperate attempt to prove that no player is bigger than the program, they may have stumbled into proving the exact opposite, and in the process, signed their own cultural death warrant. The silence after the explosion is the loudest sound in sports.